Well, good afternoon and welcome back, friends. I want to welcome you back to the 10 Commandments of Leadership. I'm your host, Tim Alston. I'm a leadership strategist. I'm a four-time Amazon best-selling author, and I am a recovering ego-holic. Today's commandment is this: cherish the darkness. That's right. Cherish the darkness. That may sound counterintuitive. Why embrace something that we naturally avoid? But as recovering egoholics and as emerging leaders, darkness is one of God's greatest classrooms. Darkness is one of God's greatest classrooms. The Bible's book of Psalm, chapter 77 and verse 6 says, I remember my songs in the night. I remember my songs in the night. And today we'll explore why the sweetest songs and the richest fragrances in life are born in the dark. For example, there's a little bird that will never sing its full song its owner desires until the cage is covered and the light is shut out. Only then does it sing its entire melody. And in the Balkan Mountains, located in the eastern part of the Balkan Peninsula in southeastern Europe, the world's rose oil is harvested before dawn. Why, you ask? Because 40% of the rose's fragrance disappears once sunlight touches it. Interesting. More, the Bible records that at the birth of Jesus Christ, the angels sang, but not at high noon. They sang at night over the town of Bethlehem. And in Matthew 25 and verse 6, Jesus himself told of a cry at midnight, here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him. All of these examples teach us that some of life's sweetest songs and richest fragrances are born not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. That's why, for example, I often retreat to the dark parts of our home or on our front porch at 2, 3, or 4 in the morning. Why? In the dark, there are minimal distractions. And it's where I talk to God, but more importantly, he talks to me without any interference. Perhaps that's why Jesus rose a great while before dawn to pray. The people, the noise, the demands of the daylight hadn't yet begun. Now let's bring in the ego-holism recovering lens. The inflated ego resists darkness. Instead, it craves the spotlight, the applause, the constant validation. Whereas the deflated ego dreads darkness. It sees shadows as failure, rejection, or punishment. But now, that was the inflated ego and then the deflated. What about us who are the recovering egoholics? We embrace the darkness. We see it as God's refining ground. Darkness humbles the inflated ego and steadies the deflated ego. Friends, it is in the dark where God teaches us to lead with humility, where he strips away noise so we can hear his voice clearly. In his book, Celebration of Discipline, Richard Foster wrote that in contemporary society, our adversary majors in three things: noise, hurry, and crowds. If he can keep us engaged in muchness and manyness, he will rest satisfied. Let me say that again. In contemporary society, the adversary majors in three things: noise, hurry, and crowds. If he can keep us engaged in muchness and manyness, he will rest satisfied. But God speaks most clearly in silence and in darkness. Think about that. But God speaks most clearly in silence and in darkness. And Pastor Evangelist Charles Swindoll reminds us famously that life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we choose to respond. Break that down. That 10%, that dark season, those lonely hours and the setbacks, that 10% is unavoidable. We have no control over that. But how we respond, which is that 90%, determines whether we stay ego driven or become ego-holism recovering leaders. Again, in closing, let me recap. Here's today's commandment: cherish the darkness. Don't despise it. Don't run from it. Guard it jealously, because in those darkest seasons, whether hours or days or years, God is producing in you and me the sweetest music, the richest fragrance, and the deepest leadership growth. Friends, it's often in the dark that God gives us the marching orders to walk in the light. It is often in the dark that God gives us the marching orders to walk in the light. I'm Tim Alston. I'm a recovering ego-holic, and this has been the Tim Commandments of Leadership. Until next time, cherish the darkness, for it may be your greatest launch pad into the light. Your greatest launch pad into the night. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If anything I have said to you has been inspiring, has been informational, and has been encouraging, please share it with a friend. And for yourself, like, share, and subscribe it. And we'll see you tomorrow as we wrap up this first full week of fall with the 10 Commandments of Leadership. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.